What is Beethoven's favorite fruit?
Tell me.
Banana.
Dang it. Should have known that one.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from Chef versus Baker. Oh, I almost messed up. And this week we are talking about taste testers and taste testing.
Yes.
It's a thing. Let's talk about it.
Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.
Oh, hello, Sharon.
Hi, Winter.
How has your week been?
Good. How's your week?
It's been good. I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's been one of those weeks, but it's been good, I guess. How? And you?
Yeah, about the same. Our neighbors have listened to their television in their bedroom extra loudly, and we're getting ready to have a little chat with them.
Quote unquote chat.
It's been no bueno at night.
Oh man, you don't mess with the sleep.
Yeah, it's
You just get cranky.
kind of rough.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I've been drinking a lot of caffeine more than usual.
Which doesn't help the sleep.
No, not when you need to wind down and go to sleep.
Nope,
Yeah,
not at all.
It's a little rough.
Oh, I'm sorry. That kind of stinks.
But other than that, my week's been good.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Hey, so we do have a food nerd shout out, and this was actually one that was in person, which I'm pretty excited about.
Woohoo!
It's like a food nerd shout out plus an update.
A plug.
Yeah. So I ran into somebody that just started listening to the podcast. It's fairly new to her. And her name's Lauren. Hey, Lauren. And
Hi.
she told me that she's like, I've been listening to your podcast. It's awesome. And very excited and happy that she's been listening. But then she said that episode about the ergo spout, I'm so excited for it. And I was like, oh, really? And I'm like, of course you would be. But why in particular? And she said that her dad is a small dairy farmer who raises goats. And she
Nice.
remembers when she was a kid that she would be pouring milk from those half-gallon mason jars, the wide-mouthed mason jars, and it would just get all over the place. And so she's just waiting for the wide-mouth prototype to come out, right? And so I actually reached out to Kate at Ergo Spout, and I told her, I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know somebody's like really excited. She heard that. She's pumped about it because her dad raises goats, and she's like, that is so awesome. Thanks for sharing. And then she noted, we just got the first 3D printed prototype for the wide mouth last week. And she said that she's pretty excited. So this was about a week ago that I got this email. So it's happening, people. So if you haven't signed up or if you haven't listened to that episode, go there. It's the Ergo Spout one, and basically designing a kitchen tool, and sign up on their email list so that you can get alerted when they actually do the Kickstarter for the wide mouth.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be pretty awesome. So thank you so much, Lauren, for pulling me aside and telling me, and also Kate for writing me back, because people are waiting and are excited.
Yeah. Okay, let's dig into the kitchen drawer.
Sorry. I just really wanted to do that. What are you talking about today, Sharon?
Today I'm talking about a tool that is helpful for my camp kitchen.
Yes.
Now, I've talked about my camp kitchen a couple of times before.
Yeah, you have.
Because we go camping quite a bit, and we try to be as efficient as possible because we car camp, but the car that we use is a little bit snug to fit. It's a little small on the small side to fit all of our needs for
the 4 people and the gear.
And the gear for the few days to a week that we go out at a time. So today I wanted to highlight our Mercer culinary knife roll.
What?
It's a knife roll.
I don't know what that is.
So it's a piece of, I don't know, it's like made out of nylon, I think. I want to say like nylon and webbing and some other things. But it's a piece of fabric essentially that has little slots built into it that you can put your knives in.
Oh.
And then it rolls up and secures together with some Velcro. And you'll see like chefs carrying them around and stuff like that. Everybody had like, bring your knives. We're going to be fancy. They'll take them in a knife roll.
Yes.
Sometimes they're made out of leather, other materials, but
Lee's is made of now that you say what it is, his is made out of a really heavy canvas.
yeah, I think this one is like a canvas and nylon combination.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure, but it's very cheap. And when I say cheap, I mean inexpensive. It's decent quality. I sent a link to Winter so we can put it in our show notes. If you go to like the restaurant store, I think
Any restaurant supply store will have one.
Yeah, and it's usually less than $20.
So I'm assuming the reason why it's handy is that you're not taking your entire block, obviously, of knives.
Nope.
You need a couple, maybe one.
Yeah, we usually take about 2 knives. We'll usually take a chef's knife and then like a smaller utility knife, a little bit bigger than a paring knife, just for the random things that we have.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll share it between the 4 of us when we sit down and eat. Not usually, but sometimes, depending on what we're eating. Like, because we've had steak before, I think, stuff like that, or chops in the cast iron over the campfire. But it's handy because we put our spatulas in it as well. And like any whisks and things like that we need, we just kind of pack it in there and then it rolls all together and it secures.
That's actually a really smart idea, because I was like, if you're only taking 2 knives, then that is a lot of wasted space. But if you're using all of your utensils in there too, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, so we put all of our kitchen utensils in there and it packs them up pretty well and it keeps them together. So you're not kind of looking around in random boxes or gear bags or anything like that for everything that you need.
Right.
And your sharp things aren't floating loose. It's just nice to keep everything together and compact. And then you just grab it and go, and you know exactly what's in there. It's perfect.
Nice. Okay.
And we like this 4-slot one because when you're camping, you just don't need that much space.
Okay, a 4-slot one. I will post that in the show notes. I like that hack, actually.
Yeah.
It's a really good camping food hack.
Yeah, and we don't worry about getting it dirty. We put our dirty utensils back into it. No big deal. And then roll it back up. And then we wash them when we get home. I mean, we'll wash them when we're camping and stuff like that. But you give everything a good wash a lot of times when you come home as well.
Anyway, yeah.
And then that just throws in wash in the machine.
Okay. So it is because it's made out of the kind of a cloth, nylon, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, it washes up really well in the washing machine. So I give it 5 out of 5 stars.
5 out of 5. It's a good one, you guys. And it's inexpensive too.
Yeah, less than $20. It's great.
It's good to have. Now that you say that, I'm going to steal Lee's. Actually, his is kind of larger. It has many slots because it is for his culinary endeavors. I was like, what would I say?
Yeah, I got his originally for culinary school, and then he realized he needed a larger one for culinary school, so he had a couple of knife rolls hanging out, and he was actually going to get rid of that, and I was like, no, we can use it.
It will be good. Okay, well, cool. That's awesome.
And now for the main course.
Okay, let's get down to our main topic, and that is food testing.
Taste testers.
Taste testers.
Taste testing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got onto this topic. It was really funny. Hi, Dan. This is my an acquaintance. Actually, he's a relative, and so
He's an acquaintance, just some dude I know.
no, so we were like, oh, let's kind of talk about what we should do, and we were just standing outside my place, and he happened to kind of walk by. And he's like, why didn't you talk about dog food tasting or testing?
No, I did.
No,
he had Jagger with him.
He had
Jagger.
He had his little doggy with him. And you said that. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And apparently there are dog food companies that have people taste stuff.
Yeah, there's pet food companies. So both cat and dog food, if it's technically edible for human consumption.
Right.
Which most stuff that's sold in the grocery stores needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
They actually pay humans.
Pay humans, people.
They pay
They
humans.
could pay you to taste.
They don't pay your animal. They'll pay you to taste the food.
Taste the food. The cat food.
Mm-hmm.
The dog food. The wet stuff, maybe. Maybe the kibble?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I read this whole article and I can't find it now. Otherwise, I'd be talking about it at length because it was hilarious and funny. Well, hilarious, funny, and fascinating. That's what I meant to say. It's hilarious and
There
fascinating.
you go.
But they pay people upwards of like $75,000, $80,000 a year to taste dog food and cat food, and how like the nuances of the aroma and stuff like that. It is quite nuanced, but the food is bland. But like there's different textures, and the food have different tastes. So ever since I read this article, because they talked a lot about the gels, like in wet food, how there's like the compressed like meat looking substance.
Yeah.
But then they'll have like a gravy or a gel or something with it. And how that is sometimes a different taste than the rest of the food.
So you have to taste the gel too?
We now feed our diabetic cat differently. Because I make the boys scoop out the gels to make sure that he gets the gel part too.
Okay. I'm slightly horrified because it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe let's just talk about taste testing in general for food, not those weird. Okay, Sharon, let's talk about that. Okay. I'll let you go take that. I'll let you take that path of taste testing.
Oh, of taste testing. Yeah. So,
it's a professional.
It's a time-honored profession, Winter.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
It originated back in like ancient Egypt and ancient Rome. There was an officer in high rank in royal courts called the cup bearer.
Yeah.
And their duty was to serve drinks at the royal tables. So because people feared getting poisoned all of the time.
Right.
So he needed to be a person who was very trustworthy.
Right.
He was in a position of high regard because he had to be very trustworthy, but also very loyal and willing to try the different drinks. The cupbearer especially would try the drinks to make sure that yes.
Oh man.
But they also had to be very trustworthy because, you didn't want them to to just slip it in your drink after they had tasted it in front of you and type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the cupbearer's job.
What if they accidentally put in some iocane powder, Sharon?
Remind me what
odorless, tasteless. Sorry. Princess Bride quote. Sorry. That taste tester wouldn't be able to detect it.
No, they wouldn't.
Poor taste tester, dude. It's dead.
Yeah. You just wouldn't know. It's inconceivable.
It's inconceivable indeed.
So the food taster, so there would be the cupbearer and then there would be a food taster.
Oh, okay.
The food taster was also a person of great trustworthiness. So they would test the food for anybody, and it was usually important people like monarchs or somebody under threat of an assassination or harm.
Yeah.
And they had a few functions. So the safety of the food could be observed and determined whether or not the taster subsequently became ill.
How long would one wait?
Right. So it wasn't that effective against slow-acting poisons that take a long time to produce symptoms.
Right. Okay.
But, for the immediate, things, then it was pretty good. But they also served to prevent other people from poisoning the food. So usually these people were involved in the preparation somehow. They would oversee the cooks and things like that.
Okay.
And kind of follow the food around.
Almost a butler.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In a sense.
And the taster would also provide any evidence of deliberate poisoning by following that food around and stuff like that. They could kind of detect plots and different things like that.
So they have to be astute and aware of their surroundings.
Exactly.
It's the CIA for the monarchs.
Well, it's funny that you say that because in modern times, there have been presidents and rulers that have employed taste testers. Notably, Adolf Hitler had one.
Understandable.
She would taste the food every day, I think at 8 or so in the morning. And if she didn't fall ill, then the food would be sent to Hitler's military headquarters. Vladimir Putin
Yeah.
has a food taster
Putin.
who is part of his security staff detail.
Uh-huh.
And it's apparently he has this food taster with him at all times and at all events.
I'm sure. I am sure.
There's been a couple of recent presidents who also have food tasters, notably George Bush.
Oh.
He used
The George Elder?
W.
George W. Bush.
Yeah.
His dad
The
grew up on the
artist.
Prime Minister of Japan.
I remember that.
Wasn't it the Prime Minister of Japan?
This is somebody like that, yeah.
He should have used a food taster.
Yeah. So George Bush did. So did Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
The people that they used were usually typically White House chefs.
Oh, okay.
But it's something that the Secret Service doesn't really talk about.
Because they don't want to know. They don't want to, like...
It's an open secret, more or less, that
Right.
the president has a food taster. The Secret Service doesn't go into it and doesn't confirm it on record that they do this.
Right.
But they are very, like, when traveling and things like that, they are very
Careful.
and do thorough inspections of the food.
That's good. That is
So.
good. Yes, this is good.
You know,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I did never think about that in that, like, taste testing in that way. But those people are taste testers.
Well, and they're in vulnerable positions of power.
Yeah.
I read a Snopes article about presidential food tasters. It's typically a White House chef. It has been known to be Secret Service people, also different kind of like military guards.
Right.
I think there was like some Navy people that helped out George Bush. So yeah. But it's a thing. And
yeah, it's a thing.
It did raise eyebrows at one point when President Obama back in 2013 didn't eat at a dinner at the Capitol with some Republicans.
Really?
Yeah. Like, it's in the Snopes article, but like he looked longingly at the food, but he didn't have his chef with him.
So he couldn't eat it.
Yeah, some protocol that
Yeah.
they had in place. And so I think he had water or something like that
Oh,
and just
wah,
like
wah.
kind of watched everybody eat.
Oh, man. You're not sending cookies to the White House. They're not going to eat any of those.
Nope. No home
Don't
baked
do
goods.
it. Nope. Nope. Not at all. Well, that's cool.
So yeah.
I like that. What about the modern day taste testers?
So the modern day taste testers who don't work for a government,
Yes.
who aren't taste testing for like royalty or
Right.
the president of the United
Right.
States. There's kind of two categories. There's professional taste testers,
Yes.
and then there's the Joe Schmo average people taste testers.
The consumer, the quote unquote consumer.
Yeah, consumer taste testers.
Well, before we jump off to the consumer taste tester, can I talk about a couple more people that are the professional taste testers?
Yeah.
Because there are people that go to school for this.
Oh, is there?
There is training.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, there's I was like, what?
I just thought they just used somebody like, oh, if you're not sick, looks good.
Yeah, kind of like, the person that helped prepare the food or that you trust. Like, it's fine, right? No, there's actually people that they're called organoleptic testers. Organoleptic.
What does that mean when you break that down?
I will break that down. It's Greek. Organon means organ and leptikos means to take. And so it's basically,
That sounds like black market stealing.
oh man, it's all sorts. It does actually. So, kidney?
Sorry.
Anybody? Kidney? Anyway, so organoleptic means acting or involving the use of the sense organs. So taste and smell and touch and all of those things that,
Okay.
and heat, temperature also is involved in it. So you're using all of those things. And I didn't realize this, but the Scoville,
The Scoville scale for the peppers. The
exactly
heat.
is considered an organoleptic. That their test there, it's an organoleptic test in order to gauge how much heat, obviously, right? From the capsaicin, from those dried, they end up drying the peppers, and then they measure out the mass, so it's equal amount, and then they use alcohol to pull out the capsaicin, and then those compounds are going to be used to test the spiciness. And what ends up happening is that extract that they pulled off is diluted in sugar water and given to a panel of 5 taste testers. And these are 5. They usually say it's about 5 because these are people that have trained. They have a trained organoleptic skill to taste these things. And obviously for the Scoville, the more dilute it is, the more water that they put into it, the spicier the pepper. Like, so they'll taste it. And when 3 out of the 5 of them can taste a hint of spice, then it's like, okay, that's the spot. And that's when they start giving it the Scoville, like.
Oh, so then they find their baseline.
Oh, they call them the Scoville units, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just based off of that. So how much they dilute it. And then obviously, as you know, that there's, because we've talked about this a little bit before, is that, you know, if you're putting it in alcohol or water, those make them hotter. Use stuff that will, like milk and cream and that type of thing, because those things will, cheese, those fatty foods will kind of surround the heat, the capsaicin. So, because you need to neutralize that capsaicin.
Okay, yeah.
Also, did you know that capsaicin is alkaline? So in order to neutralize it, you can drink something acidic. So some citrus.
Oh.
Like soda also is kind of acidic. So that's another thought. So if you're in dire straits, then go for something acidic.
Okay.
Side note. Anyway, so these folks that are organoleptic testers, it's kind of a mouthful actually to say that. It kind of came into be where in the 1950s, there was an article in, I'm pretty proud of this, in Analytical Chemistry. And they talked about how you need to have this panel and how who these members are that are going to be part of the panel and what their qualifications, quote unquote qualifications, because they need to be able to have some baseline, understand the basics of taste. And, you know, it was so funny. Now, if they're experienced, then you only need about 5 members. If they're inexperienced or learning, then you should go up to 15 members for this panel, because it's going to even itself out if you don't have as advanced taste tester for this kind of thing. So you're probably wondering, like, what the heck are these people doing? Like, what are they taste testing?
Yes.
Because I didn't realize that there are certain things. So this one article that I'm reading is that there's a chemical company called Sigma Aldrich. They have chemicals and they note organoleptic, like you can say something about like benzyl ether, for example. Ethers are they have taste. That's what usually gives taste to like your banana jelly bean or something like that.
Right.
It's the ethers that give those the taste.
That essence.
Exactly. And so they will explain what in their catalog, they actually have organoleptic, and they'll describe what that ether tastes like. Like that's...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because think about it. Like, have you ever had the Birdie's Bots? What are they called? The Harry Potters.
Oh, the Birdie Bots, every flavor beans.
Because somebody had to create something that tastes like vomit. Right?
I had a dirt one and a vomit one.
And a boogies one, right? I mean, so they...
I had dirt and vomit. It's gross.
So those come from somebody had to create a chemical to make those lovely flavors. So there are people that do this because they are trying to come up with certain things like that, very specific for consumers to actually have and eat. And so this article talks about how you should do that. And so these members of this panel, they will be usually given just as a kind of a test, a control. They're given 3 samples of food and 2 of which are identical, and to see how consistent they are in choosing like what their judgment is. And then they need to make sure that they are able to reproduce the same choices that they would do every time. And as I kept reading this, I was like, I would be a terrible organoleptic tester, because I'm like, I feel like we were just talking before we started about a stew we had.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that was before we started recording. So you don't know what we talked about, but I think I feel like even though Lee made something totally the same, it didn't translate very well. Wow. Anyway. Okay. So
It was good stew, everybody.
it was good stew. It was excellent stew like 3 months ago. Anyway, so these people are actually, because I was like, are there jobs out there? There's like, can I get a job if I was a taste tester in this
Can
area?
I train myself to be an organoleptic taster?
Yes, you can.
Oh,
Yes, you can. So
tell me more.
namely, so the FDA and a lot of federal and state governments, they actually have mandates in order to protect the public if there are kind of natural or environmental disasters. They are, for example, there was one paper issued called Managing Seafood Safety After an Oil Spill.
Ooh.
I know.
yeah.
Ooh, exactly. And so obviously
Good information to know.
yeah, we do have sophisticated equipment, right? Like there's stuff out there to be able to test what things may be there, contaminants and stuff like that. So there's gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, there's HPLC, if you're familiar with that. And then they still rely on this very archaic form of testing for something if it's off. Does that make sense?
Did he die? No. Sounds good.
They use these organoleptic panels of people that in order to see if there's an off taste or something is off smell, like because those really technologically advanced machinery cannot detect that kind of stuff if they don't have any control.
They can't tell when the milk goes bad.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Think about it though, right?
That seems like a big blind spot.
Well, the problem is that they're like, okay, I'm testing for all these compounds and they're there, but how do you test for things that might not quite be right? Or you don't, like I said, you don't have a control for. Like they kind of went into this a little bit more, but so what happens with these folks, this panel for this type of situation when there is an oil spill, what they usually do is before any seafood goes to market, these experts, this panel will smell the raw food. Then they will smell the cooked food. And then finally, they'll taste the cooked food to see if they detect any sort of taint of oil.
Okay.
And then I was thinking, I'm like, gosh, I wonder if super tasters, we've talked about super tasters before, would be good at this. And I kind of think yes and no. Like if you have a super taste to certain things, then it might be good to like, you could be really good at detecting something bad. Does that make sense?
Would it be falsely heightened though?
That's true.
Certain things.
And that was the opposite thing. I was like, oh, what if it throws off the balance of the panel? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of leaning towards maybe not having a super taster on there, but they could help detect the taint of oil in this situation, which is crazy to me. So anyway, you can become, I just want to tell you, you can have a career in taste testing. If you want to do this, they talk about this specifically in this Managing Seafood Safety After an Oil Spill. They have, first of all, you have to attend harmonization workshops so that you get on the same playing field, like you kind of understand taste and smell and texture and that type of thing.
Okay.
It's very interesting. So that you're just basically on the same criteria and practices of evaluating tastes. And then you could become, after you get to that point, you can become a trained assessor. So you will have limited tasks, but you can assess certain things. And then if you're getting really good, you've logged many hours and tasted many things, you could be an expert assessor. And eventually you can go into becoming a facilitator to helping set up these tests, setting up these panels and assessing the data that you get.
So there's a clear career path here.
There totally is. You could totally go do this. And I think this one obviously is in seafood and safety, and because the FDA does need to worry about food safety, but there's not, I think it would be foolish of us to assume that the FDA is, able to manage and make sure all the food is good and all that.
Yeah, they're not. That's why everything gets recalled all the time.
Yeah. So, I think if you have a company, it would be wise to have a taste testing panel in order to make sure your product is good, or if something is a little off, then that you don't even send it out. So thought that was really interesting. I'll put a couple links in the show notes for some of these articles that I found because it was pretty interesting because I feel like, I mean, you don't have to necessarily be trained. You don't have to have a degree or anything, but it does help if you are maybe a food scientist. That helps. Or you did get a pathway of like the culinary arts because you're trained in food preparation and that type of thing. And you kind of developed your palate. One other thing that they did mention that I thought was interesting was that you have to have a good sense of, taste, smell, temperature, texture, and that type of thing. You need to be able to evaluate those, but you also have to be able to tell people about it.
Yes, I did notice that communication seemed to be key in taste testing.
Yeah, and you're in consumer taste testing also you have to be able to not just say, "Oh, that was good."
Right.
You have to describe, "Oh yeah, it kind of has some bitter notes to it and it has, whatever it happens to be." I love watching sommeliers talk about the notes in wine. I've never had wine before. So it's one of those things. You can do the same thing with chocolate, I think.
Yeah, you definitely can.
At Tony Caputo's, it's just a local specialty market. And Matt Caputo super gets into chocolate. And he loves to do I think you've taken the chocolate class, but they give you a piece of that generic Nestle's chocolate or Hershey's chocolate, right?
Right. And then you just can't go back after that class.
Yeah. Then you taste all the chocolates the specialty chocolates. And then you're like, oh, this Nestle/Hershey's is not awesome in comparison. So you just have to, you kind of train your tongue. And that's what I think you would do if you wanted to have a career as a taste tester. But you're telling me that I can have a career as a taste tester, like as a Joe Schmo.
Well, it's not necessarily a career, but you can get compensation. There's different companies that will pay you for your time or pay you in product, things like that. It's usually like a part-time type of gig to test out like new flavors of something. It's really popular for things like ice cream and soups, baked goods, things like that. Just new flavors of already established goods.
Yeah.
As I was looking into consumer taste testing, I came across an article by Consumer Reports that described what they do. And Consumer Reports is the organization. They have a magazine, or I think they still do. They're the gold standard. They rate everything from cars
vacuum cleaners
to vacuums, like electronics, different things like that, and food. And they rate, what is the best Thanksgiving turkey for your buck, that kind of thing. They'll rate quality and different things like that. Their bottom line, their ultimate goal is to answer 2 questions about food products. And they are, how does it differ from other brands and how high is the quality?
Right.
So they can kind of make it fall into a rating scale of sorts. But they are really involved with how they do their consumer testing. So you and I could walk in off the street and volunteer. We would be compensated for our time somehow.
Okay.
They didn't really go into the compensation of what they do. But when people visit like their headquarters and stuff like that, invariably everybody offers to taste test the ice cream.
Yeah. I would want to taste test ice cream. Thank you very much.
But you have to be willing to eat foods that you dislike.
Right.
They have a screening process, and that's one of the things is that you have to be willing to eat food that you dislike. So sometimes that is eating butter spread, like a buttery spread, like
by itself,
just straight up, like margarine or, all the different types of margarine substitutes and butter substitutes and things like that. You have to be willing to just try a spoonful type of a thing.
A spoonful. I can't believe it's not butter.
So the people that they hire to do these, they have normal taste, normal like odor acuity, sense of smell, things like that.
How do they rank that? Do they just like smell this? What does it smell like? Just so that you can kind of get
some training.
Okay.
They do some training.
They harmonize them.
Yeah. Like you were saying, basically, like you take these harmonization classes and things like that. And they do a little bit of training beforehand. And so at the start of each project, they'll spend a few days prior to the actual tasting.
Right.
To prep. And so they kind of get everybody in the same room and say, to identify flavor, like of peanut butter. Does this taste like roasted peanuts or does it taste like burnt peanuts?
Oh.
And they kind of do some opposites like that until they can kind of narrow it down and everybody is kind of in agreement on certain things.
They have a universal criteria.
Yeah. And so they'll do like comparisons, like with chicken soup, say.
Basic stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so, they'll test like chicken broths and, one that's made with roasted chicken and then one that is made with boiled chicken and then one that's made with bouillon. And so they'll kind of talk about the differences between each one. It just kind of depends on which project they're working on at that time, but they do some basics like that. And everybody has to be able to describe flavor. And so they kind of teach you how to describe flavor.
Oh.
So like when it comes to, tell me about the meatiness of this hot dog, you can say, is it juicy like an orange or is it just moist like a raisin? So they give them a lot of comparisons.
Interesting.
But the way that they run their actual test is that they regulate there's a lot of regulation. They'll use booths usually.
Right.
Sometimes it's not advantageous to test in a booth. It might be more advantageous to test in a group. And so then they'll be at a big conference round table type of a thing. But usually it's in a booth. The booth is temperature controlled. The ventilation is very controlled. There's a little kind of like a shutter door between the test kitchen and the test booth. And they work hard for any kitchen smells to be promptly routed out of the booth.
Yep, it can't be.
They have a special ventilation system in place for that. It's amazing. And they have like a spit cup in the booth. So a lot of food tasting isn't
eating a full meal
or even a full bite.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just letting it sit on your tongue so you can identify flavor and mouthfeel and textures and then spitting it out. Some of the stuff that they're eating, if you took a bunch of bites, that you're going to get full.
Well, and then also kind of sensory overload in a sense,
yes,
right? Because let's be honest, like
sure.
we since we're always talking about hot dogs and eating a lot of hot dogs on this podcast, I don't know what our problem is, but
it was a good example.
It was a good example. So hot dogs, like there's a lot of salt in those. And after a while, your taste buds are going to get used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you will not be as sharp, quote unquote, sharp.
Exactly. So they also take breaks.
Yes.
They'll taste like 4 things. And after the 4th, they have a break.
Mm-hmm.
And they have things to cleanse your palate during that break and stuff like that. And then they keep testing the same thing all day. And it's usually like 4 to 6 things, but they'll put them in different order.
Right. To see
because most often you'll pay attention to the 1 or 2 things that you've tasted first.
Right.
You'll pay the closest attention to those. And so they're careful to kind of mix it back up later in the day.
Interesting.
So there's a very cool method that they use for their consumer average Joe tasting that gets a pretty accurate gauge across the board. So they can, have kind of a standard rating system. It's pretty great.
That is pretty cool. I think a lot of food companies employ taste testers in order to see what actually will work out in the real world.
Yeah.
Right?
There's ice cream taste testers. I read an interview with a woman who tastes ice cream all day.
All day, everybody.
She also has a spit cup.
Yep. You can't be.
She said it's a sign of a really good ice cream when she actually swallows a whole bite. Yeah. And a lot of those ice cream companies are very careful with how they present their tastes, their samples to taste. They'll shave off ice crystals and things like that.
You have to. Those will change your mouthfeel and texture.
Yeah.
That it makes.
But a lot of times they can tell if it's been refrozen or if it ever got solid in the first place and stuff like that. So I read an interview with a noodle tester. So he basically tests like cup of noodles all day.
Oh, whoa.
And he still makes noodles at night at home.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
crazy.
he doesn't get to eat it at work. So
Yeah. So just interesting. It's interesting how different ingredients can change a taste. Chemicals or ingredients like monosodium glutamate and how they train people to identify
detect
these specific things like the salt and the MSG and different types of, were there vegetables in this broth or not?
Right.
That kind of stuff.
I personally think that we could all be taste testers. You just have to know the verbiage, right? And then also just pay attention to stuff. It is interesting that you say that you were going to try stuff like you are probably not going to taste the ice cream. You're probably going to taste the thing that you don't want to taste.
Right. You're probably going to have to try different butters.
Yeah.
Or like shortening.
Yeah. I was like, oh, what's even worse than butter? Shortening would be
vegetable
worse.
oils.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've taste tested olive oil.
We have. And there are olive oil tasters that they can detect when maybe it's not olive oil. Like
right.
It's been mixed with something else. So it's just interesting. You just have to kind of be keen on what you're looking for, I think, if you want to be a taste tester. I think this area, we can talk about it for days because there's so many cool things and studies they've done, like the Pepsi and the Coke taste test, that famous taste testing thing.
Man.
Prego, ragu, all of that's super fun. Like if you want to get into that, look that stuff up. It's super, super fun. I still want ice cream though.
Okay. Maybe we should go get some.
Yeah.
Introducing interesting ingredients.
Do. Yay. I'm excited for this interesting ingredient because, let me back up. We were eating some kimchi jjigae. If you don't know what that is.
Well, you said kimchi.
Yes.
What's jjigae?
It's a stew.
Oh, okay.
It's basically a kimchi stew. And my friend Jamie.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's way good. So she made it and it was really good. She sent us some home and she's like, there's something missing. I can't figure out what it is. I think it needs to be a little bit like, there needs to be more depth or something to it. Like, because she made the broth.
Did she make the kimchi as well?
She did not. She bought the sour kimchi, but she made the broth and she started with anchovies and everything. Like she did the entire everything.
Built it up.
And she's like, you know what? I think it just needs a little bit more salt and maybe some more anchovies. I think next time I'll do it, I'll add more anchovies. And we're like, as she was texting us, we were eating our leftovers of the kimchi jjigae that she sent home with us. And Lee's like, oh, wait, let me grab something really fast. We're eating it. I was like, oh, yeah, that we were talking about it. He's like, hold on a second. So he goes to the refrigerator, pulls out our Worcestershire sauce. We're going to talk about that. Worcestershire sauce. And he puts a couple of dabs in there into the soup. And he's like, oh, yeah, that does the trick. And so I put some in too. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he's like, because there's anchovies in it. It's like a fermented anchovy.
Yeah, but there's other ingredients.
There are other ingredients, but it did the trick for what we were looking for. And my friend Jamie's like, I didn't even know that had anchovies in it. She didn't even know what I can't say that Worcestershire sauce really was. And so that's what I want to talk about today.
What is Worcestershire sauce?
Thanks for saying. So actually, really quickly, fun fact, you can pronounce it several ways. And we always kind of joke and say every single syllable. But Worcestershire is one. Worcestershire is another one.
Oh, yeah.
And then Worcestershire.
They're all considered correct.
Okay, yeah.
They are?
All of them are considered correct.
I think I've said it like that. I think I've said each of those.
Yeah, there's
iterations.
Every possible thing that you can do. So
I feel better about myself.
Yeah, you did really good. So I just wanted to tell you that this, first of all, obviously there is many iterations of what could be in it, right? Mm-hmm. But the original ingredients of a bottle of Worcestershire sauce that was originally sold had barley, malt vinegar, spirit vinegar, molasses, sugar, salt, anchovies, tamarind extract, onions, garlic, spice, and then a generic flavorings. Now, the flavorings, people kind of think that the original flavorings was like soy sauce, some lemons, some pickles, peppers, cloves. Those were kind of the things that it involved. So just a little bit of history. I really enjoyed this. It's people call it a fermented fish sauce in a sense. So the brand that I'm familiar with, the one that we have in our refrigerator, is the Lee and Perrins. It's a brown bottle.
The most common.
It's the
with
most
the paper around
with the paper around it. And it was commercialized in 1837. I just want to point out the people that invented it were pharmacists. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What ended up happening was there was a Lord Sandys. He was a nobleman in the area and in Worcester. I think it's just Worcester in the county of Worcester. He came back and he had this like recipe that he's like, oh, I went to Bengal and I really love this recipe. Can you guys figure this out? So these two chemists, John Lee and William Perrins, they created this first batch of the sauce. They were like, this is not great. So they kind of put it aside. It was like not palatable at all. So like they put the barrel aside and
they made it in a barrel.
Yeah. Some people talk about actually on
that's a big.
There's a couple of different,
a lot to make.
There's a couple of different accounts, but some people say it was made in a barrel. Other people say it was made in bottles, but nonetheless, it was set aside because it was not palatable. They decided to just let it go. And then when a few years later, when they were trying to like clean out the cellar and they tried it again and it actually mellowed out quite a bit, aged.
Because it fermented.
It did. And sure enough, that's when it was poured. So it's a sauce that has, once again, it has a blend of vinegars and seasonings. And they were starting to send it out all over the country. And then eventually to the United States, they sent it on boat liners. And so people just were just loving it. And so in 1839, John Duncan, he's a New York entrepreneur. He ordered some of this. And because of that, he was like, it became super, super popular in the US. It was actually the first commercially bottled condiment in the US, which is surprising to me because I want to say ketchup should be, right? But it's not.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Worcestershire sauce. So what do you use Worcestershire sauce in, Sharon?
I use it in meat dishes.
Yeah.
Sauces. Stews. I make a mushroom bourguignon from Smitten Kitchen.
Oh, with that.
Yeah.
What would you say it adds? Like,
it adds a flavor depth. Just adds a depth of flavor. It can be quite salty.
Mm-hmm.
They do make a low sodium version.
Yeah.
I actually don't like that as much. And I find that I need to use a little bit more salt, of course, because it is low sodium.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do end up with that one, I end up using kind of a lot of salt.
Yeah. Kind of as a
supplement,
a balance.
to that. Yeah. But I only, whenever I've used it, I don't think I've ever used more than like a tablespoon or so.
Yeah, you don't need very much. But they do talk about, talking about taste testers, they talk about how Worcestershire sauce is another way to create umami.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say? Like, for
sure.
Like you were talking about a depth of flavor, that type of thing. There's that.
It's a savory flavor.
It kind of rounds it out and everything. So
yeah, and there's some key umami ingredients in it.
Yes.
Tamarind.
Soy sauce.
Soy.
Yeah.
So tamarind is similar to soy, but it's a root.
Mm-hmm.
You can get tamarind sauce. That's basically like gluten-free soy type of a thing.
Yes, exactly.
But the anchovies, that's an umami flavor.
Yep.
Lots of things in there are just the base for that other flavor of umami. You've got the sweet, sour, bitter, salt, umami.
Yep. Now, to finish off this discussion about Worcestershire sauce, I cannot say this word, you guys. I apologize.
I think you're saying it right. According to what you just told us, you are.
So, in 1876, the High Court of Justice in England ruled that Lee and Perrins of Worcester, the plaintiff, they do not have the rights to the name Worcestershire in connection to the sauce.
Oh.
So, we love to talk about trademarks and patents that expire. So,
but their brand is still alive and well today.
Lee and Perrins, that's their brand name, right? But Worcestershire is, other brands can use that as the sauce.
Yes.
In relation to the sauce. And yeah. when you're referring
when
to
I
the
was
sauce?
a kid, though, they did have commercials like Grey Poupon, had the
Of
really
course.
popular
Yes,
commercial that
yes.
we've talked about before. But Lee and Perrins had commercials,
Oh, really?
and they would talk about, like, they would refer to the Worcestershire sauce as Lee and Perrins.
Oh,
Like that was the name of the sauce,
Yes.
not Worcestershire, because they made fun of how hard it was to pronounce.
oh.
And so it was, hey, do you have any Lee and Perrins?
Gotcha.
But it wasn't in a car or anything like that.
No, it was just like, use this.
Use Lee and Perrins.
This is it. Okay, well, Worcestershire sauce.
The moral of the story is that I think you need to create a food winter as a pharmacist.
Yes, as a chemist, as a pharmacist, there's plenty to make. There's many sauces that can be made.
Think about it.
I will.
Thanks for joining us today on our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify.
Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for sharing this podcast. It's been super fun. Feel free to show them how to find a podcast on their phone, because you'd be surprised at how many people have no idea what a podcast is, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Anyway, join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry squared, yeah, hungry